I'm really worried about California. California's always got everything in control.
Just the political climate is really concerning to see. Still kind of scary to see what's happening out there.
Get out and vote. Your vote counts.
Election season can be confusing enough already, and misleading political ads only add to it. We're breaking down a flyer you might have in your mailbox right now. California lawmakers are making an effort to better regulate trust funds after a report revealed widespread corruption. And we're talking about an issue in women's health that isn't talked about enough. Let's get to the point.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Alex Bell, and this is To the Point. And if you're coming into this election season with questions, you are not alone. Elections are confusing enough already, and the abundance of attack ads it doesn't help, especially when those ads have information in them that's misleading or just completely untrue. Now, today, Becca Habegger looked into an advertisement that you may have already seen and explains why what the ad claims isn't the whole truth.
Asian Resources, Inc. is a Sacramento-based nonprofit that has been serving the local Asian American and Pacific Islander community for more than 4 decades.
We've been around since 1980, started to be able to work with refugees that came here during the fall of Saigon.
Stephanie Nguyen is executive director here. She's also running as one of 2 Democratic candidates for the state assembly in District 10.
I get campaigning and I get where attack ads happen, but this is different.
She's talking about this mailer that's circulating. Her campaign provided this photo of one that someone in Elk Grove received, paid for by a political action committee called Housing Providers for Responsible Solutions. It claims she tried to raise our taxes when she wasn't paying hers. Specifically, it says Sacramento County filed a tax lien on Nguyen's business for failure to pay taxes. So let's dive into that. It is true that Sacramento County placed a tax lien against the nonprofit Asian Resources, Inc. in March of 2019, but that lien was released in June of 2020. As for the claim of Nguyen's business, Asian Resources, Inc. is a nonprofit organization.
This is not my business. I don't own this. A nonprofit organization belongs to the community. It doesn't belong to any one person.
I asked her how the tax lien came to be in the first place.
The property in which we were at belonged to the Sacramento Unified School District. We were a renter. We received this letter. We contacted the county and said, we're a nonprofit. This isn't even our building. This belongs to the Sacramento Unified School District. So they informed us to fill out this tax exemption form, and then they told us not to pay for it because this would go through the process. At that time, they then filed the lien, but then they also came back and said that this was their mistake and that they'll go ahead and cancel that.
ABC 10 made several attempts to confirm this with the county, but did not hear back by airtime. However, the chief appraiser in the Sacramento County Assessor's Office told the Sacramento Bee after Asian Resources submitted exemption forms, the Assessor's Office approved them and the Department of Finance removed the lien. The nonprofit also paid the remaining bill left after receiving its exemption. This situation is not uncommon with nonprofits, she told the Bee. Many assume that if they are exempt in one jurisdiction, they are automatically exempt in all jurisdictions, but unfortunately, this is not the case. A claim must be filed in each jurisdiction. But this ad suggests a different version of events, and Nguyen says it's casting Asian Resources, Inc. in a negative light.
This is going to lead to folks questioning our ability to be fiscally responsible. This questions our ability to be able to even run an organization. And I can say that we had some of those calls come in this morning already. So it's unfortunate.
Becca's with me now. Becca, the nonprofit is now suing.
Yeah, last week, ARI's attorneys sent a cease and desist letter to the Political Action Committee telling them, we think the statements in this ad are false and we ask you to stop circulating anything. In fact, there's a TV ad that the Political Action Committee has bought. It's unclear whether that is circulating or that's on the airwaves now. We know, I checked with our folks here at ABC 10. I know that the TV spot is not airing on our station right now, but that could happen in coming days. And then basically ARI said, okay, well, since the mailers went out after our cease and desist letter, we're essentially going to sue this Political Action Committee. So that's in the works right now.
And it is important to mention that the Political Action Committee, this is separate from her opponent.
Absolutely, yes. Eric Guerra, Sacramento City Council member and Mayor Pro Tem. He's her opponent in this District 10 Assembly race. The Political Action Committee is separate from Eric Guerra, totally different. Guerra was not behind this ad, just financially they're separate. So, want to make that clear. This is not her opponent making these claims.
All right, Becca, thank you. We appreciate it. With the election being so close, a lot of you are taking the time to send in questions that you want us to answer, and we are doing our absolute best to make time to answer them right here on air. And many of the questions are about ballot propositions. So Brandon Ritteman has some more information about a few of them. Take a look.
We've gotten a lot of really good questions from people watching our ballot proposition videos. An anonymous viewer had this comment on our video about Prop 1. Why won't you mention that this proposition has no language restricting late-term abortions in California? The short answer is our videos focus on the things that are in the props, not the things they don't do. This is an argument from the No campaign on Prop 1, who say it would legalize late-term abortions. But it's a speculative argument. Prop 1 itself does not legalize late-term abortions. California already has statutory laws banning abortions after viability. That's around week 24 of a pregnancy. By making access to abortion a fundamental right in the state constitution, opponents are arguing Prop 1 could undo those limits. They theorize that a lawsuit could cause a court to strike down the existing laws that limit when abortions can happen. Is that possible? Theoretically, yeah. Is it certain to happen? No, not at all. Our state constitution gives us all kinds of rights that are limited by other laws in our state statutes. Our right to read government records, for instance. All that may be more than most voters need to decide whether they're going to be for or against Prop 1, but if you are on the fence because of this, I hope that information helps. Clemmy also asked us, can you let us know what the immediate and future impact of Proposition 30 would be if it were to pass? As we explained, Prop 30 is a new higher income tax rate on income over $2 million a year. The new tax would apply to next year's income, that's the 2023 tax year, and it would go on for another 20 years. It's supposed to raise at least a few $billions a year for the state. As we explained, some goes to fighting and preventing wildfires, and it would be a sizable increase to that spending, but most of the money would pay for zero-emission vehicles. California does already have regulations to phase out the sale of new gasoline cars and light trucks by the year 2035. The ban on gas cars, if it sticks, is expected to put a whole lot more electric and hydrogen cars on the road anyway. Now, Prop 30 could speed that up, but the main effect, per the state analysts, would be to change who pays. Wealthy taxpayers would be subsidizing cleaner cars for people, businesses, and government, and also subsidizing charging stations. There is also a state budget impact to Prop 30. Up to $3 billion a year of its spending would count towards the state's annual spending limit. Now, this is wonky, but it's important. It means that in years when state lawmakers max out the budget, they may have to cut other state priorities to make room for the spending in Prop 30. Thanks so much for all your questions and comments. Please keep them coming. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. Get your ballot in by then.
Right around a corner, and that was ABC 10's Brandon Ritteman. And like he said, the election is less than 2 weeks away, and we are working to answer even more of your questions. So make sure that you scan the QR code on your screen right now, or you can always go to abc10.com/politics and let us know if there's anything about the voting process or anything just on the ballot in general that you'd like us to explain. All right, after the break, a type of corruption that's being carried out by people whose jobs are to protect against corruption from happening. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, so we'll explain after the break. Some families choose to store money away in a trust account. These are generally secure places for that money to sit until it can be passed on to a family member or another loved one. So now the California Supreme Court has approved new rules to better protect people's trust accounts. During ABC 10's investigation, The Price of Care, we began to understand how easily these trusts can be manipulated. Jim Marshall, a court investigator, explained to us that under California's current legal guidelines, it is very easy for this money to be taken advantage of by the very people that are hired to keep these accounts safe.
Corruption is to frustrate the intent of the trustor. The person who is relying on another to protect them, to protect their estate during and after their lifetime. However, not all fiduciaries are doing that.
And do you believe that corruption is happening here in the Sacramento County Probate Court now?
Yes.
Marshall also told us once an attorney or fiduciary is signed onto the trust, it ends the court's oversight of the account and how the funds inside are being managed. So it's good to hear there's some regulations being put in place. Investigative reporter Andy Judson joins me now. Of course, she's been following all of this. Andy, let's talk about the rules that are actually changing. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. So these rules were proposed by the California State Bar after an audit that they did found an attorney mismanaging their client's trust fund. So these new rules will require attorneys to do a number of things like reporting that they are simply managing those clients' trust funds. That's something that we probably all thought was already happening, but it wasn't. And these new rules will go in place in the coming year when attorneys try to renew their licenses in 2023.
And do you think these new rules would be sufficient enough?
Yeah, it's a much needed start, I would say, but these new regulations are specifically for attorneys, which do often handle client trust funds. But as you said earlier, in California, fiduciaries also are in charge of entrusted with people's money. Actually, in the investigation we did, Price of Care Season 1, we found fiduciaries manage around $13 billion of people's money in California alone. So obviously it's a lot of money, but we also found there's a huge lack of oversight by the Professional Fiduciary Bureau, which is the state agency that's supposed to regulate this industry, and they're basically not. So these new rules are a very good start for attorneys, but we also need fiduciaries as well.
So this is just one step. Hopefully there's more to come.
Absolutely.
All right, Andy, thank you.
Thanks for having
And you can watch the season 1 and 2 of The Price of Care on our ABC 10 YouTube channel or our website. And when we come back, our week long of looking into women's health issues, it continues. Today, you are getting ready to meet a mother who is also a nurse practitioner who took matters into her own hands to make sure that women aren't having issues after pregnancy.
I was married trying to conceive, and after a year of trying, not successfully, went down the fertility medical roads and found that we had unexplained infertility. So that started a big journey of, but why? Why isn't my body working?
I think it is really helpful to talk about it and say, hey, yes, after I gave birth with my second, I definitely peed my pants sometimes, and I came here and I got help. I don't know why there's that shame built up around something that I didn't do anything wrong, and it's not something that was in my control.
My health took a little bit of a downward spiral, and I gained a lot of weight. And so although as time went on and my hormones changed as I aged and I started to feel a lot more relaxation in my pelvic floor, I just kind of always told myself, well, once you get back into shape, once you start doing yoga again, this will improve. And I did that now for going on 3 years.
Women's health. It is not talked about enough, especially for those who have given birth. So this week I am sharing real stories of women who took their issues with women's health care into their own hands because they believe that no one should feel alone, embarrassed, and definitely not in pain. So in these stories, we were talking about pelvic floor therapy and the impacts that it can have on your entire body. Tonight, we introduce you to a mother who has been dealing with her own pelvic floor issues. She is also a nurse practitioner and says that access, awareness, and research are just some of the reasons that women have been suffering from pelvic pain for years.
I am a women's health nurse practitioner and certified nurse midwife. I've been both for about 20 years now, and I work in both inpatient hospital settings as well as private practice clinic and federally qualified health center. For me personally, I have been pregnant or breastfeeding most of the last 15 years, and like many people with multiple babies, noticed that my core strength and my pelvic floor strength just really declined over time. After my last child was born, he was actually stillborn. And so I spent a lot of time afterwards grieving, and my health took a little bit of a downward spiral, and I gained a lot of weight. As time went on and my hormones changed as I aged and I started to feel a lot more relaxation in my pelvic floor, I just kind of always told myself, well, once you get back into shape, once you start doing yoga again, you know, this will improve.
Hold that breath and vacuum.
I was referring yet another postpartum patient to a pelvic floor therapist, and I realized I would never tell a patient to just lose weight to deal with her pelvic floor relaxation. And so that was ridiculously a light bulb moment for me to actually like
Gilmore backyard here.
dedicate some time
Sacramento
to
seeing
this.
some
Like a lot of
temperatures.
women
Look at
just
this, 68.
dismiss
I love
these
this.
symptoms
Modesto
as
at
part of
67,
life. and
Marysville at
don't
66,
put a lot of attention
Tahoe
into it.
at 41.
Coughing,
So
sneezing,
love seeing these
laughing
nice
can make
fall
pee or
temperatures. And
sometimes
here's a quick
even
check of
poop
your 10-day
leak.
forecast
And it
here.
can also lead to
Not
a
looking
feeling
too
of
bad as we
pelvic
get closer to the
pressure
weekend.
and fullness and discomfort, and sometimes even impact sex, and it can become painful. So those are all kind of things that I have started routinely assessing for women in the postpartum period, which, believe it or not, has not been the standard for that long. I watched the introduction of electronic health records and kind of standard women's health chart note templates. There was no section for asking about incontinence or pelvic pain or sexual pain. It's been something that has not been a focus of research, it's not been a focus of care. It's really left a lot of women kind of suffering for years, feeling like this is just the way that it is. I think too, a lot of women feel like, well, you know, I had a cesarean, so how could my pelvic floor be impacted? And now what we know through research is that a lot of the pelvic floor stretching and damage actually happens from the weight of the pregnancy. I've had patients literally tell me that their life was changed because things they didn't even know that were related to their pelvic floor weakness suddenly improved. Usually back pain, shoulder pain, pelvic pressure. And that is a challenge. You know, I have many patients who can't afford to pay out of pocket and whose insurance really don't cover any physical therapy centers that include pelvic floor work. To realize that women have been suffering for years, it is why I'm a healthcare provider.
Spent a lot of time with these women, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your stories. I learned a lot, and I hope you at home also learned a lot too. But if you are experiencing any pain that might be from a pelvic disorder, make sure that you contact your healthcare provider. UCLA Health says that 1 in 3 women will experience a pelvic floor disorder during their lifetimes. Now, later in the week, we will be hearing from Hinge Health. They recently launched a digital program that focuses specifically on pelvic floor therapy, what we've been talking about. So the reason they launched this program, well, according to Hinge Health, less than 7% of physical therapists in the country are able to serve women with pelvic floor disorders. On average, it takes women about 6.5 years to seek care because these conditions, they have just become so normalized. And for some people, it can be really hard to get access to care. But Hinge Health says that it is never too late or too early to start getting the care that you need. All right, let's go ahead and take a breath. The seasons are changing, cooling weather is on the way. I'm loving these cooler temperatures. Let's take a look outside at our Gilmore backyard here. Sacramento seeing some cooler temperatures. Look at this, 68. I love this. Modesto at 67, Marysville at 66, Tahoe at 41. So love seeing these nice fall temperatures. And here's a quick check of your 10-day forecast here. Not looking too bad as we get closer to the weekend. We all know that the news can be heavy, and the point of this show is to spend more time on stories and make sure that we're making sense of all the issues that are impacting us here in Northern California. So please reach out, let us know what's going on in your world, and we want to know the issues that you care about. And if you miss any of our stories, and if you missed our story about women's health, make sure that you check them out. I really wanted to take the time to talk about this because women's health care, it is just not talked about enough. So don't forget, you can always stream us on ABC 10 Plus, and any questions you have, send our way. I also want to say that this week marks my 1 year here at ABC 10. I am overwhelmed, happy, and excited to be in this community at this station. And I can't thank you guys enough for all the outpour of support, questions, comments for the show. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great night.